Okay, Bitcoin's got a legitimate breakout. Okay, I told you on Monday, again, we were moving up, and I told you we were going to push above this level. I was looking for a push above it, and I told you I thought we'd stall. 69 to 70,000, as high as 71,000 range. I told you the resistance zone between 70 and 71,000. And again, we broke through that level. I told you what to be watching for a breakout, what to be watching for a breakout. So we had a bigger surge. Take a moment to congratulate the Moon Boys. After 7.5 months, 7.5 months of being wrong, they finally have been right. We actually got a breakout. We got a legitimate breakout. They told us these sell-offs were not going to happen. We were told we're going to 100,000, not 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 going to 100,000, not. And finally, we get this breakout. So the Moon Boys, after being wrong, telling us these sell-offs were never, ever going to happen. Okay, and I mean, we've been hearing this for 7.5 straight months. The Moon Boys actually got something right after 7.5 months. So congratulations to the Moon Boys. After being wrong for 7.5 months straight, they finally got something right. I want to make sure I give credit where credit is due. Now, the question is, we did get a breakout, and I told you we could. I told you what to watch for. Question is it a legitimate breakout or is it a fake out? We'll have to be watching the close on the weekly charts that are now turning back to bullish this week. We had a nearly 3% move up on Monday, and then on Tuesday we moved up 5%, but we didn't close at those highs. We closed up 4% higher. Now we're moving off of those highs. So we did not move above the March peak. So unfortunately for the Moon Boys, they are still down. They never saw the sell-offs coming. They never saw these sell-offs coming. And again, when I called a bottom here at this 52,000 area, my signals turned to bullish shortly thereafter. Again, catching this move, and then I told you about this sell-off right here, and then I told you we were going to bounce off that 150 period. The green line is a 50, the pink line is a 100, and I told you about this move. I told you we were going up to 68, 69,000, possibly as high as 70, 71. I was wrong about pushing through the resistance zone. I thought that we would stall at the resistance zone. We ended up pushing, I didn't draw that very straight. We ended up pushing up through it just a little bit to test this high over here. And again, now the waiting game to see if it's the real deal, done still. Is it a legitimate breakout or is it a fake out? There is good volume on the second day, the first day of the breakout here, which I made the video yesterday. We are still working on that. I don't think the volume is as good, but it was good on Tuesday. So again, we do have a legitimate breakout, and again, we should be acknowledging that the Moon Boys have actually gotten something right in the last 7.5 months. As I've been calling the swings, my signals, which are correct, have been calling the swings back and forth. The Moon Boys told us these sell-offs and rebounds were never, ever going to happen. And every time we rebounded back up and got near the highs, then again, 100,000, here we come, which never, ever happened. So here we actually get a legitimate breakout. We'll see. And again, the Moon Boys have been telling us all these moves, these rallies up, that they never saw the sell-offs coming. They told us they were all going to be legitimate breakouts, which they were wrong every single time. So again, you got to give credit where credit is due. They actually got something right. And again, I don't care which way Bitcoin goes, up or down. I'm a trader. I can make money either way. I play both the bullish side and the bearish side. And again, the Moon Boys, they don't believe prices go down, only up. My signals have been correct back and forth, back and forth. The Moon Boys have now come back up to the March high, and they're just slightly negative by a few $100 below this area now. So again, signals have called this move. We've had a $21,000 move higher right here. And again, my signals have caught the majority of that move and even the pullback here and the rebound up here because I have good indicators. I told you that after my signals called the bottom at 52,000 right here at Bitcoin's average price and our 50-week moving average, again, I told you after the signals turned bullish that, again, if and throughout this move that if we can get a breakout, if the bullish scenario does happen in the weekly time frame, that I would turn back to longer term bullish on Bitcoin if my signals, which are correct, can remain bullish. Now, if they turn back to bullish, it means we're either going sideways or we're going up. So again, the bulls have a lot more work to be done if they're going to prove that this is a new bull phase. Then again, but again, I have been bullish, and my signals did call this entire 21,000 run up here, even with the pullback, and calling again that we still go higher. We got to go a whole lot higher for the Moon Boys to be right, because again, they totally missed that move by telling us that these sell-offs were never, ever, ever, ever going to happen. Ever. You dare to say that Bitcoin's going to go down, you are a heretic in the Moon Boy cult. Absolutely some incredible moves back and forth. Again, since the March high, beautiful, beautiful moves. The run-up going into March from the January low, my signals turned back to bullish and began to turn bearish there at that 73,000 area. Again, the Moon Boys, they told us these sell-offs weren't going to happen over here. What is this? 23%. I might have got that mixed up previously with this 25% sell-off, 25% here. Here again, the 29% sell-off in 8 days, and then over here we had a 19% sell-off. So again, these back and forth, and then the rallies, the beautiful rallies back up 70,000, and again, just some really nice moves. The rally up here to the double top and so forth. Now, the volume of the first day of the actual breakout, it was okay. It wasn't spectacular, but the volume on Tuesday was very good. But we're hitting the upper Bollinger Band. That's problematic going forward. So again, if we start closing back below it and turning back down, there's still the possibility of a head and shoulders if this thing ends up failing. And then we'll be watching some of the trend lines, and my trend line right here moved on me, it looks like. But work to be done if the bulls are going to be able to pull this off. Again, you have this the possible bull flag, but again, we're still in this trading range, as you can clearly see down to there with these lows. The low right there. We're still in this trading range. You got to be able to break out of this level. You got to be able to have a push above 69,000, which we are above 69,000 now, but you got to be able to stay above it, and you got to be able to clear this peak over here. And if we do back test, it has to be a successful back test. So there's still work to be done, but we'll see what happens. And this move ends up filling the Moon Boys. Their heads are going to explode. Again, like I said, my signals, which are correct, have been bullish, calling that bottom at 52,000, and have been bullish, which I continue to tell you. We did turn bearish here, but I told you it was going to happen. I told you we were going to turn back to bullish, bouncing off the 50 and the 100 period moving average, which was correct because I have good indicators. The 4-hour chart that nailed this stuff and this bullish diversions here, and it's just been absolutely incredible calls on the 4-hour chart. We'll be watching to see what happens at the upper Bollinger Band here, and we've gotten rejection at the upper Bollinger Band, tagging it or pushing above it, moving towards it. We'll see what happens here. Now, again, we can pull back at a successful back test. You can ride that upper Bollinger Band if we get a real legitimate breakout, but that means that the criteria that I've talked about has to be met, and not not having this failed move or this drop back below 69,000. You can back test and go briefly below it, but you got to be able to get above 69,000 and consistently stay above it. I just want to say, well, the Moon Boys have missed all these big sell-offs, the 23%, 25%, 29%. This 19% sell-off, all these big sell-offs and the rebounds back up. Again, since my signals turned bullish right after we hit this low of 52,000, shortly thereafter, my signals turned bullish. Since that 52,000 low, and hang on, this moved on me. Since that 52,000 low, we've gotten a 40% rise on Bitcoin. My signals caught the majority of that going up here the pullback, and then reaffirming the bullish signals here with the bullish divergence. Again, my signals caught the majority of that 40% move, while the moon boys told us the sell-offs were never going to happen. Okay? The moon boys are still waiting for us to push above this level, and we're still below it by a few $100s. So again, that's because they were blindsided by these moves. My signals were not blindsided. My signals called the tops and the bottoms because I have good indicators. So again, while we've moved up 40%, which my signals caught the majority of that move and even the pullback I talked about, moon boys are still waiting for us to get above 73,800. Okay? And again, blindsided by these moves down and the moves to them. They finally got something right after being wrong for 7.5 months. Actually got a legitimate breakout. We'll see if it's the real deal. Again, we've got above the trend line here in the weekly time frame. I told you last week the 10 got above the 20, remains above the 20. That's bullish. I told you that's a feather in the cap for the bulls. And again, with the breakout, if we get a topping tail like we did over here, then that's going to be very bearish. If we can get a close above here, get a successful back test, and then bounce, 69,000 is right at that back test level, bounce, resume the advance, that would be extremely bullish. Okay, being bearish, we would lose the 69,000 area, stay below it, not dip below it, but stay below it, and then we would end up dropping and having a failed breakout. So that would be bearish. We'll be watching to see what happens as the bulls and bears fight it out. Do we close by the end of the week below this trend line right here and get a topping tail? Or do we get the real breakout, or maybe break out and start to back test and have a successful back test? We'll be watching as the bulls and bears fight it out. Again, these bottoms were at the 50-week moving average. When I called these bottoms over here, and again, right after we hit the 52,000 area here, we bounced, and again, my signals turned bullish. And then again, we got above the 20-week. I told you about that. And we continued to close above it. And then we got the big surge a couple of weeks ago there. It's a waiting game as the bulls and bears fight it out. Do we have a legitimate breakout, or do we have a fake out? And again, watching the weekly closes on my signals here in the weekly time frame. Again, Bitcoin is anticipating a Trump victory. He's friendly towards cryptocurrency. I'm going to tell you something. Next week, if there's any kind of certainty or shenanigans surrounding the election, that could create a lot of volatility for Bitcoin. So again, just something to pay attention to. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but again, the market is Bitcoin's expecting, the crypto community is expecting a certain outcome. When if that outcome doesn't happen, and again, the election could be an issue. The Fed, not cutting at an aggressive pace as the market had hoped for. A lot of things on the table. And then we have the jobs report. Do we start seeing evidence of a recession? We're getting the trending signal turning back to bullish here in the weekly time frame. But again, the week's not over yet. The week is young. So again, do we have the weekly signal turning bullish by the end of the week at the close, which is by Sunday? So we'll be watching. The momentum is trying to turn positive. Does it remain that way by Sunday? So we'll be watching. And again, if the signal can turn bullish like it did over here and remain that way, that's going to be positive. If it flips back down and it turns back to bearish and we get a topping tail, then that's going to be bearish. We'll be watching again. Do we get a legitimate breakout here? And again, if we do get a legitimate breakout, it tells us we're either going sideways or we're going up. That's what it's telling us. Again, my momentum signals have been bullish since the 52,000 area. They started turning back to bullish with the higher low that's set up after this low at 49,000. And you can see the momentum line bullish, and again the bars have turned back to green. Now we're getting the trend signal turning back to green with the cloud and trying to flip the color in the background here and trying to get a buy signal, trying to get the bullish momentum here. Can the bulls pull it off? And if they can, signal's got to remain that way. So we'll be watching. But like I said, my signals in the daily time frame turn back to bullish from the 52,000 area and have been bullish, consistently catching both of those legs up we're still below the peak where we were told, here we go to 100,000, and none of this was going to happen. So again, 7.5 months of the Moon Boys being wrong. They're finally right about something, but they're still underwater from that March peak. Now, again, the signals turn back to bullish over here, and then we had the trend signals turn back to bullish, and again we had the run up, and I told you about the pullback, and I told you we bounced right here, and then we turned back up here. But I told you these sell signals were appearing, but I told you again I still thought we were going to go higher and again form a divergence. Told you about the 68 to 69,000 target, and we would possibly go as high as 70 to 71. We exceeded that, but on Monday my signals turned back to bullish, and here on Sunday, with the arrow there turning back to bullish, and again for diversions we've got it, but we did go higher than I anticipated. I told you if we did break above those levels, then you have a potential breakout. So we're watching these levels, and again there's warning signs of sell signals here. I told you I expected higher highs, but I told you that could still form a divergence and create a top. It is very, very possible. It could be just short term, but we'll have to wait and see. Do we get a legitimate breakout or not? So do we get a breakout back test? Do we get a failed breakout? We'll be watching to see how it unfolds. Now my weekly signals are trying to turn back to bullish. Our trend signals remain bullish here. Momentum briefly turned, and now again, as we expected, going higher above this peak, but clearing that 71,000 area, 71,000 area of resistance. Why did I think we would go above that level again? To form divergences. I talked about it on the RSI, the MACD, and here with momentum. Momentum is forming this divergence. Again, it very well could be that just gives us a back test. It could be that it gives us a failed breakout. We'll be watching. But the signals have been absolutely amazing, calling the moves back and forth, and we had warning signs here. I told you I still thought that divergence would form here, and it is. The question is it just going to end up giving us some kind of back test, or is it going to end up causing the breakout to fail? We'll be watching. But there could be a couple of different things that ends up rattling the stock market, rattling Bitcoin. Again, we still have tensions in the Middle East. Iran is still saying they're going to respond. Some news outlets are saying they're not, but the Iranian president is saying that they're obligated to respond. So again, do tensions continue to escalate in the Middle East? We've got the Fed, but at a slower pace than the market's hoping for. What are they going to say here next week? We have earnings season for the stock market. A lot of earnings. What does that do to stocks? Stocks have a positive correlation with Bitcoin. Then we got the presidential election. Is there going to be shenanigans around the election? Is there going to be an uncertainty, a different outcome than everybody thinks? We'll see what happens. There's a lot of different catalysts that could end up creating some kind of volatility. So just keep that in mind. The Moon Boy oscillator is at extremes as we're getting this breakout. And again, the dollar has already broken out and back tested. If Bitcoin is really broken out, the dollar has to collapse, okay, below the 200-week moving average. It bounced off of it with the breakout and back test. So again, there's problems here need to be resolved if this is a legitimate breakout. Bitcoin and the dollar are both rising. One of them is wrong. Okay, here's the dollar. Look at this parabolic move to the dollar on the dollar. Okay, the dollar is rising back up to the 200. It's probably going to get a pullback. It's got a short-term positive correlation with Bitcoin right now. They're both rising. Okay, it's been rising since the Fed cut. So has the 10-year Treasury note yield. We're going to likely see this begin to pull back. Because I think it's going to get a higher low and then go on higher. If Bitcoin is to go higher, the dollar has to collapse below this low over here. Okay, it has to collapse. They have a negative correlation. The dollar has broken out of this downward trend right here. It back tested the move right here at the 200-week moving average and horizontal support. It bounced. It broke back above this trend line right here. If the dollar has bottomed, that's going to be problematic for a bullish case for Bitcoin. The dollar has to come back here and collapse below the 200-week moving average and take out the support zone in order for Bitcoin to have a bull market. We had Bitcoin top over here. The dollar surged when after the dollar broke out. Bitcoin topped, okay, and Bitcoin tanked 78%. The dollar soared, okay. Here we've had this bottom, okay. So we're going to be watching to see what happens very closely, because again, one of them is wrong. They're both rising, okay, right now. And again, Bitcoin's been rising since 52,000 there, and the dollar's been rising. So which one of them is wrong? Which one of them is right? They both can't be right. They both can't keep going. If Bitcoin's right, the dollar's got to collapse. If the dollar is right, Bitcoin's going to collapse. It's as simple as that. So we'll be watching. But we got to back above this trend line. I told you we could see that happen. Still get a pullback. If we do, does a positive correlation continue? Actually, the positive correlation is going to end. And one of them is going to be wrong about going higher. The financial crisis in 2007 and 8 there, the stock market collapsed. The dollar soared. When we had the sell-off with Bitcoin and NASDAQ in 2021 into the 2022 sell-off, the dollar soared, the market and Bitcoin collapsed. So again, which one is right? Which one is wrong? Is the dollar right or is Bitcoin right? They both can't be right. One of them is wrong. Bitcoin's right. The dollar has to collapse. Bounced off the 200-week moving average with a successful backtest. Problems with the breakout. That's all I'm saying. The 4-hour chart has been making absolutely incredible calls, and we had this rally up. We got a topping tail here. We're at extremes. Probably going to see a divergence end up developing here before all is said and done. And again, that will either, that could give us a pullback and then a rise back up, and that will either give us a back test of what could be a legitimate breakout, or it will give us the reversal with a fake out, one or the other. We've had a breakout. It's on decent volume, but there's still more work to be done if it is going to be proven to be a legitimate breakout. I will show you what that is in this video. And again, there are problems with the breakout, especially between the relationship between the dollar and with Bitcoin. It's rising, okay? They both have been rising. They have a longer-term negative correlation. Both of them cannot be right. One of them is wrong. I'll talk about that in the video. So again, we had this divergence mark this term before it happened. We had this mark the bottom before the rally happened. The 4-hour chart has been absolutely incredible. Currently, Bitcoin's down about $340, down about 0.5%. It had risen as high as 5% during the Tuesday session, closed 4% higher. On Monday, it ended up closing just under 3% higher. We've had an 8% move, but we're moving off of those levels, off of the highs. I've been watching, again, these divergences. This divergence gave us this sell-off. This bullish divergence gave us this bottom. This divergence gave us this top, and so on and so forth. Absolutely incredible signals. Just like back over here and over here, these tops and bottoms in the 4-hour time frame have been amazing. Right now, again, we are at extremes. We're probably going to see a divergence end up developing here over the 4-hour bars here, and we'll be watching to see that. Again, we've got negative divergences that are forming on momentum, and a lot of my momentum oscillators in the daily time frame. I told you I was looking for that on the RSI. RSI's got almost 2 equal peaks. You've got, again, a potential divergence here forming in the 4-hour time frame here on prime parameter. Could be something that we had similar to here that is setting up right here, and this larger divergence. If we have broken out and we get a successful back test and we don't drop below 69,000 and we go on our way and get above 73,800, which is the March peak, that's just under it there, and we see signals turn back to bullish, then you've got a legitimate breakout. But right now got a possible breakout. We need to see the evidence. And we'll know by the end of the week with the weekly signals, and then we'll need to see more volume behind this. Again, this could just be a short squeeze. Are you listening? This could just be a short squeeze. There are a lot of shorts up in this area. And again, we could just be, liquidating the shorts the move ends up failing. So again, we've got to see evidence, 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 evidence. If we continued to go higher and saw all my signals and met the criteria of clearing all these resistance levels, that would be bullish, and I would turn back to bullish longer term. I've been bullish and bearish back and forth in the daily time frame as the signals turned, as I've talked about. I was expecting a rally above this level, as I talked about, but I expected it would end, 69,000 or on into 1,000. We cleared that level when we went back up to test the March high. So again, we're going to be watching. Again, this could just be a short squeeze. There is a lot of volume behind the move on Tuesday. See that continue in the evidence, but you've got divergences here, which could be problematic for Bitcoin. We'll be watching to see as the bulls and bears fight it out. And again, I really don't care which way Bitcoin goes. Again, I'm a trader. I play these moves back and forth, looking for a longer term trending move. The bulls and bears fight it out. Whoever is going to be victorious with this move right now, is this going to be the bulls now being successful, or are the bears going to steal the ball and end up causing this thing to fail? We'll be watching to see how it unfolds. But again, hats off to the Moon Boys. After 7.5 months of being wrong, they finally got something right.